Hey guys, welcome to another episode of your East Coast Rams podcast. I am your host Ashton here with my awesome co-host Zach. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's a long 3-day weekend here, at least for me. So it's been nice. Visited some family yesterday in Cincinnati. It was a good time for them who are Bengals fans. Not so great for us who are Rams fans.
Yeah. So going into this week, Eagles, we all knew this was going to be a tough matchup, tough game, and we'll kind of jump straight into it. Undefeated Eagles team come in. The Rams have a solid first half. Not so solid second half. Let's be kind of generous to the Rams. Uh, Zach, what happened to this Rams team, and what can be done to fix it?
Yeah, it's a challenge to kind of pick one thing that's kind of wrong because there's a couple things. I mean, for and foremost, the offensive line is just not giving Stafford enough time. Um, Stafford's been pretty good about getting the ball out, but some of the players are just not quite ready for those. Even as good as Puka Nakua is. It doesn't feel like he's quite ready when Stafford throws those quick darts. Same thing with Tutu Atwell. And even Cooper Kupp, like as much as he shined, and we're going to talk about that a lot about how much his return. There was still some miscommunication between Stafford and Kupp. So there's they just got too much pressure on this offensive line, and they were kind of banged up. Coleman Shelton went out for a little bit. Rob Havenstein went out for a minute. There was just some they just weren't clicking, and it really just caused problems in the second half. The Rams looked great in the first half. I mean, honestly, you watch that first half and, it was electric. I mean, Cooper Kupp was making his plays. Puka Nakua was catching the ball. We got touchdowns from Puka and from Tutu Atwell. All stuff we'll dive into. But when it comes down to the second half, I mean, it's the play calling that I think really needs to be a focal point and giving Stafford a little bit more time to make plays.
Yeah, and we'll break down offense and defense here after we just quickly go over some game stats. But I agree with you, Zach. There's a lot to dissect here, and I think this was a solid measuring game. I would say the Eagles is a top five roster in the NFL. Really good coaching. Like you got to be able to evaluate your team against that, and the Rams were in it, for three quarters, and they kind of let that fourth quarter with bad situations and bad execution get away from them. And so, what can we do to kind of adjust and make us more competitive against these deeper rosters, which is what McVay should do. And again, we have a lot of rookies. We still have a lot of growth, very clearly. Um, I think edge was a huge problem in this game. I'm sorry, but the blitzes, you shouldn't have to do blitzes to get pressure, and that's what the Rams were having to do. And that comes with a lot of broken plays. And like you saw that we could not just let Hurts sit back there and throw because those wide receivers are way too good. And he was able to kind of do that when we didn't blitz. And I think that's why the defense started to break down and the offense was a whole other set of issues. So, Zach, let's go over some of these stats. Overall, if you include this game up to the season, the Rams right now are 22nd in rush yards per play, and for passing, they are 6th with 11 yards, 0.7 per play. Um, Zach, the Rams offense in this game, what went wrong in the second half?
I mean, it was the fact that they just couldn't get anything done. I mean, there was again, it goes back to what I was talking about before. I mean, it was the miscues on the offensive line. I mean, we didn't run the ball. I mean, once we kind of lost. I mean, I wouldn't even say we never really lost the lead. Like, I mean, we were down, but we were never out of this game. But we just stopped running the ball. We stopped. We just had to do pass, and that only gets you so far. When really Kyren Williams had a good game. Like, I mean, he had the one thing, we'll talk about that towards the end of the game, but he had a really decent game. And it just, again, we get away from the run, and it's great that our pass game is strong. I mean, as you just noted, we're sixth in the league when it comes to passing yards, which is great, and that's we should be. All our offense goes through Matthew Stafford and goes through our wide receivers. That's what it is. But you have to play that complementary football, and that includes running the ball. And when you stop running the ball, you stop producing. You allow the defense to just play your passing game and be able to break that stuff up. And that's what it came down to. Plus, they put a lot of pressure on Stafford. The offensive line was not holding and not giving Stafford enough time and not enough wiggle room to be able to make a play.
Yeah, really top-notch defensive front by the Georgia Eagles, as people dub them. But like, I thought the O-line was an issue. I think the run game, it was having mixed successes. I think it was either going for 7 or 8 yards or for none at all, and it was very stop and go. I think you had to mix something that I was wanting them to incorporate into the offense more, like a lot of screens, a lot of bubble passes. They did that this game. The execution was atrocious. I think that was a problem, Zach. You saw a lot of screens just not go anywhere, miss blocks. That's something they have to clean up against a team with this talented of a front, because screens can kind of help alleviate some of that pass rush. It can kind of force DBs to sit back a little bit more and not press as much. But the execution wasn't there.
I just don't think they gave the running game a chance. I mean, again, they only ran the ball 14 times. Again, when you hit that lower level, that's when the Rams seem to be really falling apart. And I'm going to pull up Jordan Rodriguez had an interesting stat that she posted on her Twitter account, that when the Rams are up by at least 7, they run the ball on about 58% of the snaps. When the Rams are down at least 7, they run on 16.3% of snaps. And then when they're down by 3 points, they run the ball 23.6%. So that's so interesting. And I think that just shows us a lot more that when they are down, they feel like they're down by, it just feels like they have to catch up. And the only way they can catch up is with Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and through that wide receiving core.
Because we don't have explosive runners. I like Kyron.
But you don't need to have
solid back.
You don't need to have explosive runners. You just need to run the ball. You need to keep the defense guessing on what you're going to do. And Kyren Williams has shown that he's able to get yards. He only had the ball 13 times and was still averaging 4.1 yards per run. We cannot keep throwing the ball. We're not having enough success. If you look at our offensive line has been actually doing a really good job creating room for the run. When you look at the PFF scores, their run game versus their pass game, it's night and day. They're getting higher scores on their run defense, on their run blocking than they are on their pass blocking. Like you have to run the ball. Running it 14 times and then having Stafford, what was Stafford? How many times did he throw the ball? 37 times. I mean, that's still about a third. You need to have it closer to that halfway point to be successful. And again, you cannot, just because you're down 7 points doesn't mean that you should just throw the ball, that you're coming from behind. Normally you're looking at that kind of stats when you're down 2-3 scores, when you have to make the real quick throws. You have to get down the field as fast as you can. And as we saw at the end of the second half, the Rams sometimes go too fast on their offense. A, doesn't give their defense enough time, and B, doesn't chew off enough of the clock.
Yeah, I mean, leaving 30 seconds near the half, that shouldn't be enough time for our offense to score. At least a touchdown. Like, field goal, yeah. You kind of can concede a field goal given the situation, but 30 seconds, go full field. That shouldn't happen. But going back to the run game, I just personally think like when you look at this run game, they're 10th worst in the NFL, and you have to be realistic about that. And you can only do that so long until you start to give up the lead. I don't think it's the defense's fault that they didn't play bad this game, but the offense has to start to click better and earlier, and have better execution continuously. Because I think if you start running the ball with the way our run game is, I don't think we get back into a game anyways with that.
But
And
we
then when
just
you get
came
in third and long, like our O line can't hold.
we're at third and long because we didn't run the ball. We threw the ball twice and it got us nowhere. So we got to do something. And we just came from Kyron Williams having a 100-yard game to him having he had about 53 yards, I think it was. And so again, I feel like McVay is just not, he's still not trusting the run. And it's just, it's who McVay is. It's always how he's going to be. He's going to avoid the run.
Yeah.
And because he likes those explosive fades, which isn't a bad thing. Cooper Kupp's great. Puka Nacua is great. Tutu Atwell is now great in this season. And so we have the weapons in the wide receiver room, but you have to play that complementary football, and you need to be able to run the ball, and they're just not calling those plays.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting offseason with the draft and stuff, what they prioritize and what they go after. You know, if we keep on losing linemen like this, Zach, or injury issues, we're going to have to draft a lineman in the first round. Like, either that or a running back. I just think we need running back depth. I think that's a part of the issue. I have no really answers to why he doesn't trust the run game more.
I don't know. I mean, Ronnie Rivers was fine last game too. I mean, I know he only had one carry this game because again they got away from the run because again they weren't in the lead, and that shows you that Sean McVay only likes to run the ball when they are either neutral or in the lead. So I don't know. That's what they got to focus on more, is how they figure out how they can get the run game a little bit more. Maybe some jet sweeps, maybe something to reinvigorize this offense, because it's just staling, and we've seen this now in every week other than week one. We have now seen the offense stagger in the second half. They did it last week with the Colts. They did it again this week. And kind of going back to your stats about the Rams and their running game, again, it goes down to, yes, they're in the bottom because, again, they just haven't had that opportunity. You go back to the Bengals game again, and they only had 10 runs that game too. So you start stacking up all these, 10 runs per game. Of course, you're going to be in the bottom of the league when it comes to running yards. You got to run the ball. Whether you think it's successful or not, give it a shot, because what you're doing right now is not.
Yeah, they definitely have to throw something in there. Let's talk about this defense. So, defense. Our defense, the Eagles were 13 of 18 on third down. Eagles had 13 passing first downs and 12 rushing first downs. A lot of talent on this Eagles team. I thought, and correct me if you disagree, Zach, but I thought our defense played really good. It kept us in the game. A beautiful, beautiful pick by Kello Witherspoon. Can we just say, Zach, we need to re-sign him? He was a gem. Off-season find.
So my daughter got this ball signed by him, and that's probably going to be worth something someday, because he played so lights out as far as his skills go. I mean, he's gotten the 2 picks for the Rams this season, so that was excellent. So kudos to him. I give this defense probably a B- as far as their performance goes. I don't think they did poorly at all. They kept us in the game pretty much the entire way through it. They, especially in the first half, they were forcing a lot of a lot on that defense or on the Eagles offense and being able to give us a chance up until, midway through the fourth quarter. We pretty much had a shot because of our defense. But there were a lot of times where they could have gotten off the field sooner because they could
Yeah,
not
bad third
tackle.
downs.
They had bad third downs. They couldn't pressure Hurts, which give credit to the Eagles offensive line. It is stacked and it is great. And Hurts had time. He had all day to do whatever he
Hoyt.
wanted. And
Uh,
and to be fair, like our DBs did a great job of covering them because most of the time he couldn't throw to anybody. He had to use his own legs, and we could not tackle him. And it wasn't just Hoyt. There was a missed tackle by Byron Young, and like there was several players who could not tackle him and bring him down. And that just shows you how athletic he is. Hurts is. I mean, when you have the whatever you want to call it, the tush push or the Philadelphia shove, that guy. I mean, you have to be pretty stacked to be able to withstand that many times. I think they did it like 6 times to us yesterday. I mean, that is for everyone who says that should be banned. I mean, you have the wrong quarterback in there, and they're going to get injured by doing that. But they're really good at this. So I don't know. I think our defense played well. Obviously, Aaron Donald was pretty much taken out of the equation. He really didn't do anything this whole game, which again, testament to the offensive line that they have. Our DBs did well. I think Deion Kendrick, he did struggle a little bit, whether that was for bad calling or, he got burnt once or twice. I think he played the worst out of the bunch. But I don't know. What are your thoughts about the defense other than?
Again, it was a lot of zones, a lot of like man to zone concepts where I felt like the communication wasn't fully there. Now, granted, give the Eagles some credit, really good play designs by them. Tight ends, man, I think that's our biggest problems, and you see it. Our linebackers and our edges cannot cover tight ends, and that's where you saw a lot of breakdown. And then you start having to cheat your safeties up a little higher to try to cover up that deficiency with your linebackers. And what happens? Your DBs get put on islands, and I know people love to hate on Kendrick this year, but no one said Kendrick would be able to completely contain AJ Brown. I'm like, I don't know what people want me to say. Like, we don't have Ramsey on the team anymore. No one we have, not even Kello, will be able to contain him. That's like asking someone to contain Kupp. Like, you're not going to win on that. And you have to be able to provide help, but you can't do that when your linebackers are giving up 20, 30 yards to a tight end.
And I don't dislike Kendrick. I think he's a great player. He's a good physical player. He's bringing that energy. He's bringing that mentality that I think the team needs. I think that what fans are mostly frustrated is like he seems to be the one who gets picked on every single week. And I get that you can't cover Kupp people. You just can't cover Kupp. But again, when you're the one DB being called out almost every single week because of either you did get burnt or you're the one who's causing all these penalties, that's something that you're going to have to look at and you're going to have to consider, like, is this spot going to be in jeopardy moving forward? I mean, you had someone like Duke Shelley come in and perform pretty well when he was kind of mixed in there with he was actually in and out for Witherspoon. Like, I'm not saying that DK is going to get pushed off, but like you could see, like, if this continues to happen, that he could see less and less role, and maybe Duke Shelley comes in and sees what he can do. It's just something to consider. Like I said, I like DK. I think he has the skill set, but he has to be careful of where his hands are placed, how soon he's getting to the wide receiver, things like that. I do think the PI on AJ Brown in the end zone, I think that was kind of I think that was a bad call. They were both handsy on each other, and it wasn't like he started it. But like he said in his press or his post game thing, he's like, some refs are going to call it, some aren't, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And that's the one that I think he shouldn't have been called on.
I mean, he is a young player making growth. Only he didn't play all year last year, but fans are gonna have to take it, and hopefully the coaching staff can fix a lot of those technique problems because he's there. He's constantly in the play. It's not like he's not in the screen, just getting toasted 30 yards. He is literally hip to hip with AJ Brown. Like, he has talent. He has to put it together, and if not, he's gonna lose his job. And you know, hopefully he puts it together. I definitely love his play, and I feel like he's gotten a lot better. But he has to stop making those mistakes because it's killing us. I mean, it's exactly like the 49ers game. This is a team that should have went into halftime in both of those games with a clear advantage, a clear systematic advantage. In both times, they gave up late touchdowns with less than like 40 seconds on the clock. You can't do that because of penalties.
Well, and
I
then the
think
offense.
both have been kind of touchy, and that's a little frustrating from my part. Is like it's kind of felt like our wide receivers aren't very aggressive, aren't super physical, outside of Puka sometimes, and I feel like you even saw DB kind of push off and like on Puka's catch touchdown, like it was fantastic. I would say that's as like defensive pass interference as what Kendrick did. Like, he's not looking back, but it's like Kendrick says, like sometimes refs gonna call that, sometimes they aren't, and it's
Yeah,
a little frustrating.
but again, like I said, I don't think our defense was the problem. I mean, we have this. I mean, the bend not break has been kind of the Rams' motto almost for a long time now. But it also means that the defense is out on the field longer when they're in this bend not break. And then when our offense doesn't capitalize, then you're back out there and then you're doing another long play. It's just wearing down that defense much quicker than it should. If the offense can sustain a drive for longer than 4 or 5 minutes, that's something that I think that they really need to capitalize on, because even after they scored the 2 touchdowns, I mean, it was still, it was almost 2 for 1 of the time possession that the Eagles had the ball compared to the Rams had the ball. The Rams are really good about getting to the red zone quick, but sometimes you need to slow it down a little bit just so that you can get to your defense a little bit of a break. But I also understand, like, if you don't kick it in gear, you may not get that opportunity again. So it's that kind of like lose-lose situation at that point on how you handle that situation. And like you said, it is 30 seconds is not a lot of time, but I think they still had 2 timeouts, and sometimes 30 seconds, especially when you play the out of bounds part of it, it could be an eternity. So just kind of, it's just kind of, it is what it is. And we're going to have to figure it out. And like I said, I think our biggest problem with the defense is that we just need to tackle better. They could have saved themselves so much if they could have just tackled Hurts or tackled the player and not have to get the yak yards that some of them got. A lot of them, they kept it in front of the chains, but once they got the ball, they were able to go past the chains, and that's what they got to figure out on the
Yeah.
defense side.
Yeah, that you mix that with, again, Edge not being able to apply pressure without blitzes.
But this Rams team is something. They have the defense. Again,
Oh
we
yeah,
all thought the
yeah,
defense was going to be the problem this year, that they were going to have to work on things. But it seems like our offense still just is not clicking, and they especially in the second half. First half, they seem to be fine. Not sure what's going on between second half and first half, that we're just switching it up. And I, as I'm going to go back to it, I still think it's because they just don't want to play that complimentary football. They gotta throw it.
I think this defense is a 15, around a 15 defense, an average defense. But this offense is top 10. It just can't be top 10 for 4 quarters. It's like top 3 for a quarter or 2 quarters, and then it just decides that it wants to be the Chicago Bears for the rest of the game and not be able to, like, drops, like it drops on third down, or overthrowing tight ends, or underthrowing wide receivers, and it's killing us. I know some of that is pressure and some of that is having issues because of O-line injuries, but we have to find some continuity, and that it's killing us, Zach.
All right.
Like you
So
said.
no, you're exactly right. We got to find that continuity. But let's talk about the positive thing that did happen this week, and we got Cooper Kupp back.
Oh yeah.
He seems like he's there. He seems like he hasn't missed a step. He was there for 11 targets, 8 receptions, 118 yards. Longest was 39, averaging about it was a 14.8. So I mean, that's the Cooper Kupp we've known forever now, and just doesn't seem like anything's changed. So that's really good news. And then you match it up with Puka, who got 7 receptions for 71 yards and that touchdown. So I think this is what we want. This is what we want to see in all 4 quarters. Even Tutu Atwell, he only had 2 receptions, but one of them was a touchdown catch. So we're seeing that spark. We're seeing what this top, like you said, really we could be a top 3 offense if we could just get our act together in the second half of the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and about Kupp, like, Stafford overthrew him on 2 touchdowns. Really, like, and you normally didn't see that in 21 or 22. You didn't see Stafford overthrow or underthrow Kupp. So you can see that they're missing some of their chemistry that they built up. And I think that's going to fix itself in 2 or 3 games. It sucks he came back during the Eagles game, because I feel like if this week and Cardinals week were reversed, that would have been a far better week for him to come in, get his feet wet, like, and get a full week of practice in, and be able to get that chemistry fully back on track and that same mindset. Because you saw, like, there are a few times where he was just wide open, and if he got the ball, like, he's going to take it to the end zone. And Puka, I mean, I had a coworker saying Puka's going to fall off. Puka's not going to get any attention. Like, the Rams are going to forget about him. His old position is gone. Kupp's going to take over. I'm like, when you have a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL, why would you push him to the bench? When you have 2 top 5 wide receivers in the NFL right now, and I think Kupp definitely is still one, man, this offense can be very scary. It's just the execution by everyone else has to be there.
The blocking has to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, everything has to be there, and I'm just so encouraged by what this offense can be. It's minor cleanups that they need to get figured out. They need to get this offensive line kind of squared away, give them more protection. Steve Avila still is being Steve Avila. We need 5 of those guys pretty much. I mean, or 4 other of them, I should say, because he's still playing lights out, and Havenstein's great too. I think a lot of people are kind of looking at that kind of last play when Havenstein was out. And Williams kind of didn't get that block down, which, you kind of see Sean McVay was super frustrated with that. And I think it was just because it was more fresh on his mind. And I don't know. I think at this point, you got to give that was at, I mean, yes, Kyron Williams should have done a little bit better of job of blocking that. But, when you're trying to replace Rob Havenstein with your backup, and then Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams is not that big, and he's actually been a really good blocker, and he actually had a couple really great blocks for Stafford during that game. But it was one play, and I don't think anybody should be defined by one play. Now, we saw this before with Cam Akers when he was on the team, that he missed a lot of those, which I think was one of the reasons why McVay was so frustrated. But I don't think this one play defines who Kyron Williams is. I think he'll just grow from it.
I'm just happy he slid someone to that side. After the Bengals game, when our left tackle went out, and he like, good luck, have fun, and enjoy the island. Welcome to the NFL. You have to face Hendrickson by yourself. Like, I'm happy you slid someone over there, and Williams didn't execute. I think the tail of the second halves of this year has been an inability to execute concepts at critical times and getting put in bad situations and not being able to make the most out of a bad situation. Now, in those two other games, in my opinion, that we lost, a lot of that was bad luck and bad reffing. This game, no, it's just a better team. You got put in a bad situation because you could not execute in the early third quarter. You got to make something happen, and we've seen it all over the NFL. Teams have been choking leads, like the Cardinals beat the Cowboys. Like, you can do it any Sunday, and you got to have that belief. And I feel like this team has given up on itself early in the fourth way too often.
Yeah, and I don't think they should. I want to say, you look at the teams that they've lost to. You've lost to both undefeated teams in the NFL as a whole. I know they're both NFC teams, but this is the whole league. There's only two undefeated teams, the 49ers and the Eagles, both of the best teams currently in this NFL, with the Dolphins kind of following their lead and things like that. But it was going to be a hard stretch. We knew this was going to be a hard stretch. For the five teams were NFL playoff teams last season. And we've faced two of the best of the league right now. So I think this just shows, and we were in both of those games. Like, we have not lost, other than the Eagles game, we lost by 9. So technically a 2-score possession, but we've been within 1-score possessions of every game we've lost. And no one, I would have to go back and look at the 49ers, but the 49ers just destroyed the Cowboys last night. So I don't know. I think this team is better than what our stats show. I just think our offense is really the ones who need to step up the game and bring a full 4 quarters of great performance.
Yeah, and I think if they do that, Zach, they can play with any team in the NFL. I really do.
Did you notice who did not get a reception?
Van Jefferson.
Well, neither did Ben Skowronek, but Van Jefferson also did not didn't get a reception. He didn't even get a target. At least Ben Skowronek at least got one target. So he's definitely slipped down to the wide receiver 4 slot at this point. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see what their game plan is when it comes to the Cardinals. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Rough stuff. You want to talk about the Cardinals?
Yeah. Interesting team the Cardinals are. If you came into it before this week, you would have thought, well, they're better than we thought they were. And then they got pretty destroyed. I mean, I would say, destroyed, but they got pretty beat by the Bengals yesterday. So I don't know what to make of this team. I mean, they do seem better than they are, or that they seem to be prior to the season. But they're still not looking elite or looking really good. You have Joshua Dobbs, who currently has 980 passing yards. He has a 65.8 completion rate. He does have 6 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, compared to Matthew Stafford, who only has 5 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. I know a couple of those not his fault, but Stats are stats. And has been sacked 9 times. I don't know how many times has Stafford been sacked. I gotta look that up real quick. What are your initial thoughts?
Uh, you know, this Cardinal team, they fight hard, they play hard. Not a good roster, overall. I think their defense has still a good amount of young talent, a really good linebacker, really good safety. Um, but overall, like, this Cardinals team is like a year away, 2 years away. I think their coaching is far improved. I did not have any respect for Cliff Kingsbury, and this Steichen. I might be thinking of the wrong Eagles coordinator. It's not Steichen. But either way, their new head coach, I have a lot of respect for. I think he's been having them play very hard. Now, you look through their games, and so, like, they lose to Commanders. I don't think the Commanders are very good this year. They lose to the Giants in embarrassing fashion. Yeah, they beat the Cowboys, but I mean, guys, Dak
But how good
Prescott
are the
is not
Cowboys?
good. Uh, the Cowboys are a great roster with a bad head coach and a bad QB. So they tend to have really bad games from time to time because those two things combine for stupidity. And then they lose to 49ers, really good team, and to Bengals in a kind of sad fashion.
I
There's
mean,
no excuse, Zach. We shouldn't beat this team.
let's give the Cardinals some credit. They do have a top 5 running back in James Conner. I mean, his stats
Yeah,
currently
Connor's good.
within the first 4 games, 62 to actually, let me bring up his actual stats as the 5 games. 68 carries, 364 yards, averaging 5.4 per carry, and has 2 touchdowns. Obviously, when you compare him to Kyron Williams, he doesn't have as many yards and as many completions, or as many carries as James Conner has, but he does have the 5 TDs, which I think is the benefit on our side. So we're really good in the red zone. I think the Cardinals' problem is really getting to the red zone. Even though, like I said, Joshua Dobbs has been playing pretty well, from Kyler Murray, who's still out on injury. But I do think that where we're kind of seeing issues is in there, kind of their receiving room. Obviously, they got rid of Hopkins. So really it's Marquise Brown, who's pretty much trying to take over the lion's share of things. 25 receptions, 300 yards. He has 3 touchdowns. They have a pretty good tight end, Zach Ertz. He's always been pretty successful as well. Not so much so far this season, but he's always a reliable as a receiver side of things. So I don't want this to be some sort of, I know we can't really be a trap game because, we haven't really won. But at the same time, like, I would not underestimate this Cardinals team, who just seem to be scrappy and are looking for another win. And the Rams can't get complacent thinking that, hey, this is big brother going to take on little brother. Sometimes the little brother can pack a punch. And we saw them through the Colts game. They had a good lead. We thought that's the team we wanted to see. And that's the team we want. Even that, again, I'm rehashing old things, so I'm not going to keep going, but that's the team we want. We know the offense can play really well. We even know the defense can play really well. Now we need to have both of those sides play really well for 4 quarters.
Yeah,
And
I
run
mean,
the ball. Sorry.
we are finally getting through this rough patch of games, and we wanted to be higher, like me and you. We'll take 2 wins. Like, I think me and you probably had them at 2. I probably had them at 1 win at this point.
If you looked at this, it depended on which week you went on this at. Before the season, I think I would have said we were going to be 2 and 3. But knowing what we knew going, like, we should be a 3 and 2 team right now. The only
Yes.
game that we should have beat the Bengals, that's the game we should have won. We should be 3-2 right now. Um, it doesn't matter. The 49ers game, it is what it is. The Eagles game, it is what it is. We should be 3-2. We're 2-3. We're one game back than what we should be. We need to take care of business now.
Yeah, but I mean, if we can take care of business, like, yeah, we got the Steelers the week after that. I think they're vulnerable. Cowboys and Packers. I think those are both like good offenses. Cowboys going to be a challenge with their D line, but I think we can score on them, and if we can, their offense is prone to a lot of mistakes. So this stretch of games, Zach, I think there's all winnable games, and if the Rams can kind of pull through, I think we can get a streak going, and you know, try to finish off the year better.
Yeah, I mean, you look down this list, and I'm on the big preacher of every team is beatable. Same thing with the Rams. The Rams are beatable. The Cardinals could come out and just show us the business because we can't get our act together. But
Yeah,
you look at the
momentum.
stretch of games, and I'm seeing, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, there's a good chance we could be 10. We could have 10 wins at the end of this. I mean, that is just looking about how some of these other teams have played and what we are capable of,
Yeah.
we could have 10 wins total, not 10 more wins, but 10 wins total. And that could be well enough to get us into the playoffs and do well. I think the NFC West is pretty much a lost cause, unless something crazy happens with the 49ers. But I do think that we're still in the contention and still on a good trajectory to get a wild card spot.
You just have to get in dance, man.
Yep.
Crazier things have happened. Just gotta get to dance.
That's right. That's all we're looking for. I mean, at this point, I think Rams fans, like, we just want to see winning games, and we want to see them hopefully at least get a playoff. And if they get a playoff spot, I think that it would exceed every person's. Maybe not the teams. Maybe the team already thinks that that's the shot, but I think every fan, would be just grateful just to get into the playoff run.
Yeah.
So, we already talked about the injuries, right? We're good on that. Did you mention that at the very beginning?
I don't think we did. You can
Okay.
touch on that.
Just real quick, Bobby Brown the third, he MCL third grade strain, so he's going to be out for. They're going to probably put him on short term IR so out at least 4 weeks, but it's looking more like 5 to 6 weeks. But good thing is, it doesn't look like a season ending injury, so very thankful for that. And then Coleman Shelton went out with a finger injury. He's fine. Havenstein with that head injury. He is fine as well. All should be good to go on that front. Other than that, I think everybody else came out pretty clean. Even though Stafford got hit a couple times, he says he still feels good. Nothing too serious. So I think we're good to go there. So that's kind of the big news updates as far as things go. Anything else you want to cover before we sign off?
No. Hopefully, execution can get down against a team that we've had their number. I feel like the Cardinals and Seahawks, so the Rams have played relatively very well under McVay. Gotta keep that up. Hopefully, we can take advantage of Murray being out and apply pressure, get a win, and start a win streak. I feel like this team needs a lot of good momentum. They need something to help boost their spirits and morale, because this is a young team. I feel like they go with the emotions way more than a more veteran team, and hopefully McVay can kind of right that ship. And I got faith in them, Zach. I think this is a better team than any of us expected, and they gotta put it together for 4 quarters.
That's right. And hopefully everyone comes to the game in SoFi Stadium this week. That's what we really need. We need fans to show up. You know, there's a lot of talk about the Rams not having fans in the stands, especially yesterday during the Eagles game, 49ers game, etc. It's just what's going to happen. I mean, this is SoFi Stadium in LA. There's lots of various people who live in LA from all across the country and across the world. And so they probably have already chosen who their teams were. So we're going to build the next generation, things like that. But keep it up. Keep attending those games. If you're a Rams fan, please don't sell your season tickets to other non-Rams people. Try to keep it close to the family as possible, close to the Ramley as possible. But again, thank you everyone who listens to the podcast, either watching us or through the audio platforms. You can find us on all audio platforms, including Spotify, Apple Music, Google Music, YouTube Music, things like whatever Google's doing these days. But you can also find us on YouTube, youtube.com/@EastCoastRams. You can find us on X or Twitter at East Coast Rams. Also visit our website, eastcoastrams.com, to find us on all of our other platforms as well. You can find Ashton at RamBandAshton1 on X, and you can find me at Zach Mayer on X as well. Yeah, and you know, this was kind of a sour loss for us, but we're going to rebound. The Rams are going to do it. We got Puka, we got Donald, we got Cooper Kupp, we have Matthew Stafford, and we have Sean McVay. And so in McVay, we trust. Sometimes, you know, we wish you would trust the running game a little bit more. But in the end, we are all Ramley, and we're always going to support the Rams house. So let's get the win on Sunday. And like we always say, whose house? Rams house.